for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee in Seoul. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. Samsung Group's de facto leader Lee Jae-yong is being questioned again by Korean prosecutors over bribery allegations amid the ongoing political probe. With Korea's foot and mouth disease alert status at its highest level, the government is looking to import more vaccine stocks facing a supply shortage. These stories and more coming right up. The independent counsel team investigating the massive corruption scandal gripping Korea summoned this morning Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong for the second time. Let's connect with our Hwang Ho-jun, who's been at the independent counsel office since the early morning hours. So Ho-jun, any additional information on the questioning of Lee Jae-yong that's taking place as we speak?
Jiun, the independent counsel spokesperson Lee Kyu-chul was unusually cautious on giving details about the ongoing interrogation of Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong. Reporters asked him about the specific reason of summoning Lee and what his attitude has been toward the interrogation. But the spokesperson said that he's not able to answer any of those questions. However, he did confirm that the team will review whether to seek arrest warrants once all the questionings are completed.
We will examine everything regarding the suspects as if we're back at square one, and then decide whether to arrest them or not.
Lee Jae-yong arrived at around 9:30 this morning, and the fact that this wasn't his first appearance here didn't really matter, as swarms of reporters, police, and protesters packed the entrance to the building where the independent counsel office is located, all trying to get a glimpse, or at least shout things at the so-called prince of Samsung. Before taking the elevator, Lee left a single comment saying that he will, quote, faithfully tell the truth during the special prosecutor's interrogation today. Two other high-level executives of the tech giant, Park Sang-jin and Hwang Sung-soo, were also summoned as suspects and are being questioned as we speak. So in all, 3 of the 5 suspects from Samsung are being interrogated. The other 2 being Peh Ji-sung and Kang Chung-gi, the head of and deputy head of the control tower of the conglomerate known as the Future Strategy Office. Samsung is alleged to have given huge donations to entities controlled by President Park's now jailed confidant, Peh Jin-sil, in return for favors such as political support for the controversial merger of 2 Samsung units, Samsung CNT and Taylor Worldwide, a move seen to have cemented Lee Jae-yong's succession as head of the group. Lee was first questioned a month ago when the team grilled him for 22 hours straight. The prosecutors then requested a warrant for his arrest on charges of bribery, embezzlement, and perjury, but that was rejected. This has been Hwang Ho-jun for Business Daily.
North Korea conducted yet another missile test over the weekend, prompting financial officials here in South Korea to meet this Monday to evaluate the potential threat to the local economy. The South Korean government has vowed to take action if any unusual movements are detected in the financial market and is operating an interagency team to monitor the situation around the clock. It will also step up communication with foreign investors and creditors so as not to hurt the country's credibility and investor sentiment. The launch on Sunday was described as being of a medium to long-range ballistic missile, which the North claims it was a success. While the general consensus is that the latest North Korean provocation will have limited financial impact, Seoul acknowledges the increased uncertainty given that it's the first provocation since U.S. President Donald Trump took office. And Korea's acting president is guaranteeing a safe business environment for foreign investors with strong security and efforts to reinforce Seoul's economic fundamentals. Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-won said at a meeting with foreign companies on Monday that Seoul operates a 24/7 monitoring system against volatile market conditions and that the government's deregulation drive with advanced ICT assets will help the economy regain momentum. He encouraged foreign investors to have faith in the Korean economy, vowing further benefits and tax deductions. Hwang also condemned North Korea's missile test, pledging close coordination with the international community to counter Pyongyang's provocations. And just like last week, the Korean equity market was mostly flat on the first session of the week, and mixed sentiment among investors is still limiting further upswings in the market. We're now joined by our markets contributor Choi Jin-seok to talk about overall stock market performance and upcoming market events. Hello, Jin-Suk.
Great to be here.
All right, so how did the Korean stock market perform on the first day of this week?
Both the Kospi and the Kosdaq market didn't move much on the first session of the week. The Kospi rose by 0.17% to close at 2078.65, while the Kosdaq followed with a 0.22% uptick to close at 611.94. There was a battle between institutions who bought massive amounts of shares and retail investors who unloaded almost the same amount throughout the session. Such mixed signals limited volatility on the Kospi market. By sector, technology suffered from a more than 1% drop during the session, and distribution and financial companies performed weakly. Chemicals, steel, machinery, and communications companies performed strongly. On the Kosdaq market, foreigners were the only net buyers, while retail investors and institutional investors sold shares during the session.
Now, special prosecutor summoned Samsung's heir apparent Lee Jae-yong this morning, spooking sentiment among investors putting money in related stocks.
Right. Experts already projected that if the questioning of Lee Jae-yong this morning on suspicion of bribery leads to a drop in share prices of Samsung Electronics, the overall sentiment of the technology sector as well as the entire market would be damaged. That is what exactly happened during today's session. Share prices of Samsung Electronics plummeted nearly 1%, falling below 1.9 million Korean won during the session, and almost all Samsung Group stocks, including Samsung SDI, Samsung C&T, and Samsung Life Insurance, suffered from intraday losses as well.
Then what are some of the market events lined up for this week? I mean, it looks like that the focus of global financial markets will be shifting towards monetary policies.
Right. Most of all, investors are expected to pay much attention to what Fed Chair Janet Yellen will say about future policy directions through her testimony to U.S. Congress on Tuesday and Wednesday local time. The focus will be whether she reiterates the Fed's current stance of 3 interest rate hikes for 2017. CME Fed Watch, a futures market betting on future rate hikes, shows a 13% possibility of a hike in March. It will be interesting what she will say about policies of the new U.S. administration as well. Quite a few Fed officials, including Dallas Fed President Robert Kaplan and Philadelphia Fed President Patrick Harker, will deliver speeches this week as well.
So although there are not a lot of global economic indicators reported this week, there are some major data that are going to draw a lot of attention from investors, right?
Right, exactly. The number of global economic indicators is quite small this week, but we can't overlook the significance of some data. From the U.S., investors might want to take a close look at retail sales and consumer prices reported on Wednesday local time. Retail sales can give hints on how robust consumer sentiment is in the world's largest economy, and consumer prices can be another important signal for the Fed to determine future policies. On Thursday, housing data will show the pace of recovery of the U.S. housing market. And from China, loan issuances, consumer prices, and producer prices will be key economic indicators reported this week.
Now, foreign investors still seem to be reluctant about making investments in the Korean market. So what are some of the negative factors preventing foreigners from putting more investment in the Korean market?
Domestically, sentiment of foreign investors is the key for this week's market movements. Last month, foreigners bought 1.6 trillion Korean won worth of stocks on the Kospi market. However, political uncertainty both from home and abroad spooked the sentiment, and they started unloading shares in February. Therefore, whether foreigners shift their position is expected to determine future movements of the Korean equity market in the near term. Investors also might want to follow the stance of foreigners in this respect. Any announcements by U.S. President Donald Trump can affect the sentiment as well. His announcements to reduce tax burdens of corporate America last week lifted stock market indexes in the U.S. to record highs. Some experts have said increased geopolitical risks from a missile test by the North Korean regime might be another negative catalyst. But historically, military provocations by North Korea have not caused a serious drop in stock market indexes.
All right, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Korea Korea's key interest rate is already at a record low of 1.25%, but global investment banks forecast the country's central bank will push forward with more easing. Morgan Stanley projects the Bank of Korea will slash the rate 3 times this year to 0.5%. And according to the International Finance Center on Monday, most investment banks, including Goldman Sachs and HSBC, expect Korea to lower rates this year. Now, a few expected a freeze, but none projected rates to rise this year. Analysts say it shows that most banks have a downbeat outlook on the Korean economy, as uncertainty is high over the political crisis here in Korea, and global conditions are also unpredictable, with concerns about the Trump administration's protectionist trade policies. International Monetary Fund Chief Christine Lagarde has expressed concerns about the Trump administration's plans to repeal the Dodd-Frank financial reform law. At the World Government Summit in Dubai on Sunday, Lagarde said the fund was very mindful of President Trump's attempt to undo the federal regulatory rules put in place after the 2008 global financial crisis. She also insisted that supervision of big banks should not be loosened and governments should work to prevent another economic meltdown. Earlier this month, President Trump signed an executive order to roll back regulations from the 2010 law, saying that the policy is holding back the economy and stopping businesses from borrowing money. The Korean government is doing its best to stem the latest foot and mouth disease outbreak. As it tests vaccines for efficacy, it's also ensuring that their stock is sufficient. And our Eunice Kim has the latest on the contagious virus as well as efforts for prevention.
On Sunday, health officials confirmed another case of foot and mouth disease at a farm in Poeun, Chungcheongbuk-do province, bringing the tally to 6. This was type O, the more common strain in Korea, unlike the type A identified last Thursday. Their simultaneous discovery had triggered the government to raise its alert level to the highest, halting the transport and trade of cattle. On Monday, Vice Agriculture Minister Lee Jun-won said testing had confirmed the rare type A virus was treatable with existing vaccines. But as they were in short supply, the government would import a combined 4.8 million doses of the shots, the majority for type O for cows. This stockpile in Korea was found to be short. The 1.9 million doses were only enough for about 67% of the country's 2.8 million bovines. As for pigs, also susceptible to FMD, there is no vaccine for a type A infection.
Whether it's type A or type O, pigs are exposed. If they become infected with type A, there is no vaccine, and we could see a case of mass infection.
A very different picture from other countries. According to Korea Rural Economic Institute, the UK keeps a stockpile of 20 million doses, while the Netherlands, maintaining 16 million doses, also has a system for additional supply on an as-need basis. By contrast, Korea's vaccine policy is evaluated to be insufficient, attributed to an over-focus on cattle cultivation and not enough focus on disease prevention.
It may seem like you'll see gains in the short term, but should an outbreak occur, the final cost in the long term could be huge.
In fact, the last big FMD outbreak 7 years ago ended only after 3.5 million cows and pigs were culled, at an estimated combined loss of $2.6 billion. Which is why more are now calling for the creation of a specialized preventative body, over leaving it up to the farmers to vaccinate their livestock. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
2017 seems to be the year that a large number of local food companies are looking to speed up their expansion in the global market. Our Lee Joo-young has more.
Rows and rows of Korean dumplings, or mandu, are being produced at this factory owned by major food manufacturer CJ Jeiljedang. A big chunk of them will be shipped overseas. That's because the company has its eyes set on reaching 1 trillion won in mandu sales, or about $850 million by 2020, with 70% of that coming from foreign markets. The company has already invested more than $173 million over the past 3 years to expand its production capabilities abroad.
Mandu can help spread the popularity of Korean food, as they're quite acceptable elsewhere.
Homegrown fast food chain Mom's Touch is also set to open its first chicken burger shop in the U.S. in October to find a new source of revenue outside of the country.
We plan to advance into the American market by establishing a local firm there as well as our first store.
While food companies have steadily expanded into the global market over the years, with domestic demand sagging, many in particular are eyeing overseas expansion this year. Other major food companies like SPC Group, which owns bakery chain Paris Baguette, says it plans to set up 2,000 stores across the U.S. and China by 2030, while MPK Group, the owner of pizza franchise Mr. Pizza, plans on expanding its stores across Southeast Asia. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, goodbye.